acknowledge visiting Rotarian Steve James. You came when Abby Morgan was here a year and a half ago and came back. Okay. Well, I know it. Well, but this is Kisling's third time in 5 years. So you've been here at least 4 times in 5 years. So great job. No, Brent's been a friend of mine for about 25 years. We met playing Y basketball. If you notice, Scott Jones had a back surgery last year. It's because Brent took his legs out from under him. True. That's right. He's a high school graduate from Burlington, a 1994 Oklahoma State grad. Something he told me that I can't believe he told me was that he sued in 1993 Oklahoma State so that they would have a homecoming king in addition to a homecoming queen. And so he did win in 1994. Mm-hmm. So that's fantastic. I'm so proud for you. Yes. But I do appreciate you staying at the Department of Commerce and not taking the offer of being Ryan Walters' press secretary. So anyway, Brent, come on up.
Thank you. Do I need this? I don't need that, do I? There you go. I didn't realize this was a roast. That's good. And I do remember those days playing basketball. Great three-point shooter. I mean, maybe the best I have ever seen. The Steph Curry of Stillwater. That is true. And Scott, that 15-footer, he could nail that just about every time. I miss those days. That was fun. I think the last time I played basketball was maybe 5-6 years ago. It's been a while, and it just takes forever to recover from something like that. And Steve James is a dear friend of mine. He may be the nicest human being that I know on this planet, and the most honest and loyal. And I have absolutely enjoyed being a friend with him. He and I were in the same leadership Oklahoma class like 20 years ago. Oh my gosh, that was forever ago. I had hair back then, and his was black, so it was a long time ago. Yeah, well, that could be it. But the other thing about Steve that's cool is we're passionate about coming over here every year for OSU homecoming. And well, I'm a former homecoming king, still got the crown and the sash. But we would come over every year for that. And we always wanted to stay over. So we'd go to walk around, and Steve offered to let us stay there. And it was my wife and I and our kids. And we'd go to walk around and hang out with all of our friends. We wouldn't get back to the house sometimes till 11, midnight. And every time he would make us bananas Foster. And it is, you all need to just start showing up at his house at midnight and have him make that, because he would do it every year. Our kids still to this day talk about Steve James making bananas Foster. Just a great guy. And also BJ Haynes is here. He and I were pledge brothers, farmhouse fraternity here at Oklahoma State. Thank you. I actually, I was a guest lecturer at one of the OSU Ag economics classes the other day, and everybody has laptops nowadays, and everybody has their sticker on the back side, you know, a farmhouse or AGR or Pi-Fi. There was a whole bunch of farmhouse guys, and I called them out because it was right in the middle of the Masters. They were all watching the Masters on their laptop while I was talking. But yeah, Beach and I were pledge brothers. I think we started with like 35 in our pledge class, and then ended up initiating like 12. So we were a large percentage of that, but has been a good friend. Glad to have him back in America. We had him out of the country for a long time, and glad to have him back here and part of this community, and glad that y'all have welcomed him here. Yes, I am the director of the Department of Commerce. I absolutely love doing that. I love coming back to this club. You have the best food of any civic club in the state. Love the rib crib, and love the Joes, anything else that you guys serve. But the thing that I love about this job is getting to travel the state and getting to see what different communities are doing, what different businesses are doing, and the different industries. And I will say, I come to Stillwater a lot. I've got a daughter that's graduating next Saturday, so I'm getting a raise next Saturday. She's our youngest. Our oldest graduated 2 years ago, lives in Woodward, where Beej is from, and is an ag engineer out there. And he went to Oklahoma State as well. Very pleased with the education they got here, and pleased that they're employed here in the great state of Oklahoma. But we still come back here all the time. Anytime that men and women are gathered around a ball and have orange on, we are here in this town, and love going to football games, love going to baseball games, have a beautiful stadium. Our softball team's doing well. But my sport has always been basketball. I love basketball. We kind of had our ups and our downs this year. But the part of basketball that I love the most is a fast break, which we never did that really. But I love fast breaks. Yeah, very slow breaks, but I love fast breaks, and I love watching the Thunder nowadays, and yeah, I'm loving watching the playoffs right now, because normally a fast break, it ends with like a slam dunk or something like that. And I failed to mention the mayor too. Worked very closely with Mayor Joyce, one of the best ones in the state. Good to see you again today. Congratulations on your kids too. Boy, you must have a great, smart wife. But yeah. But I love the fast break, and I'll just kind of frame my comments today by saying, right now in America, in economics, there's a fast break that's going on. Since March of 2020, and I was at that Thunder game whenever Rudy Gobert tested positive against Utah Jazz. That's really ground zero of the pandemic started then. Everybody was talking about it before then. But that night, whenever they had to call off that game, and then they ended up calling off all the NBA games, and the next day they called off the entire NBA season, that's really when it got everybody's attention. And the world shut down. Oklahoma shut down even for a couple of months. We hardly even remember that. But we always said during that time that it's very difficult to restart a cold engine. If you could keep the economy warm, if you could just keep people employed, if you could keep supply chains open, then someday you're going to reap some rewards. And right now, Oklahoma is reaping those rewards. And I'll throw out a couple of numbers at you. I hate doing it without a PowerPoint, but technology and me just do not work out a lot of times. But throw out a couple of numbers to you. In the last half of last year, so the last 6 months of 2022, we had the fourth fastest growing economy in America, 4.9% GDP growth at the end of last year. And just to dig a little deeper into those numbers, in the third quarter of last year, we were third in the nation. First time ever in my lifetime, and I'm old, first time in my lifetime that we've been third in the nation in GDP growth. And that's without $120 oil and 120 active rigs around Oklahoma. That's just hardcore economy, manufacturing, all of that kind of thing happening here in the States. We were third. We slipped to seventh in the fourth quarter of last year. Our numbers are looking really strong in Q1 of this year still, but we were fourth in the nation last year, last half of the year. The other interesting number is that for all of 2022, we were the 10th fastest growing population state in the nation. And we were 11th actually in 2021. So we were 11th in 2021. We were 10th in 2020. We had last year over 32,000 people net moved into the state. So you lose one person out of state. So you lose Lincoln Riley to California, you bring two people to Oklahoma. That is a net positive to the state. So you get one there. We actually have a net migration, a positive net migration with 33 other states right now. So you lose one to another state, you get two, and you have a positive net migration. Number one is Florida. Number two is Texas. This is a percentage increase. This is total population increase. So number one, Florida. Number two, Texas. Number three, North Carolina. And you got like the Utahs and some of those in there. But we came in at 10th last year. Of course, your biggest out-migration states by a long ways are California, New York, Illinois. In fact, for the first time in U.S. history, before the pandemic, but California lost a congressional seat in this last census. So those numbers, we had 41,400 new jobs in the last 12 months that have been added to the Oklahoma economy. All of those numbers kind of gin together to tell us we've got some cool things happening here in the state, but it's also causing some growing pains for us. Housing, I assume, is probably an issue here. Trying to find employees is probably an issue for some of you. And I used to do local economic development in Enid. Got to tell the Enid story all the time. And what I've tried to do in these last 4 years, I just passed the other day, I'm the longest serving commerce director in state history. About a month ago, I passed that, and I don't know if you get a set of knives or a toaster or what, but I haven't gotten an award yet. But I've tried to take those local concepts of economic development, and you guys do it here in Stillwater as well, and have a great team that does it. But try to take those to a state level, and I'll just throw out what our plan has been, and how that relates also to the community of Stillwater, because I think it's the same. The first thing that you have to do if you're going to grow an economy is you have to take care of your own first. If you remember back on that day whenever Rudy Gobert tested positive, and everything shuts down, we had 1 day's worth of PPE available in Oklahoma, face masks, hand sanitizer, that kind of thing. And we knew we were going to have to spend millions of dollars on acquiring this kind of stuff. And so at the Department of Commerce, we created a directory. We started calling companies and finding out who in Oklahoma actually made this kind of stuff. Because if we're going to spend millions of dollars, let's spend it here and not send it to Chicago or China or someplace else. And we found about 60 companies during that time. And we gave it to the Department of Health. We tried to keep as much of the money here as we could. And then as the world started opening up that summer, we took that same directory and we pointed it outward so churches could purchase from it, and camps and school activities and that kind of thing. And by that point, we had about 120 on the list. And what we did at Commerce is we have some pots of money that we use to incentivize companies to move to Oklahoma. And we carved off a huge chunk of it and turned it around, did it grants to Oklahoma legacy companies so that they could pivot and start making some of this product here. And we helped about 150 companies during that time to transition, keep that engine warm, keep our citizens employed, but then also create a new revenue source for them and keep the dollars here. Well, then I thought, well, why do we just do this with PPE? We could do this with energy. We could do it with agriculture. We could do it with aerospace manufacturing. And so I thought we could just go buy some digital platform, kind of like, Nathan, one of the kids use like Tinder or Farmers Only. I don't know why I referred to you, Dr. Horn, whatever they use. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to. I met Nathan the other day at school. Yeah, I thought I could buy something like that to just kind of connect all of our manufacturers together, and we didn't have anything. So we created something. It's called Connects Oklahoma. We have 4,000 manufacturers in Oklahoma that are on it today. And they're connecting and shortening supply chains and again, keeping dollars right here close. So taking care of our own, very, very important. Second thing that you got to do is have targeted recruitment. It is important to bring other companies here and continue to diversify the economy. We do best in Oklahoma when we are laser focused. And we were laser focused in the early 2000s, like 2008, 2009. We went all in on renewable energy and wind energy. We created some new incentive programs. We had a whole hallway of folks that focused on it. None of those folks exist anymore. None of those incentives exist anymore. But we went from 0 to second in the nation in wind energy production. And the industry's still here and still paying landowner payments and tax dollars to local schools. We did the same thing with aerospace, probably about 2013, 2014, created new incentive programs. We have a whole hallway of folks, and they still exist at the Department of Commerce. And aerospace is now our second largest employer in the state and our fastest growing by a long ways. We estimate in the next 5 years, the employment in aerospace is actually going to surpass the employment in energy in Oklahoma. So it is growing rapidly. Everything happening around Tinker Air Force Base and around American Airlines in Tulsa. Some of the things that OSU is doing on the unmanned aircraft side is making an impact there. But being targeted is important. And we also have the film industry, which is growing here. In fact, I don't think we've announced this. There's a huge, big production that's going to be starting in Oklahoma next Monday. And I hope everybody's talking about it because it's going to be a really big economic impact. It's probably the most expensive film made in 2023 is going to start filming in Oklahoma next Monday. So I never thought young kid from Burlington was going to end up over the film industry, and there are some unique personalities in that industry. But it is growing rapidly here, and biosciences is growing. We want to be very specific in the things that we go after. The third thing that we have to do if we're going to grow is have a good, solid workforce. That is by far our biggest issue in Oklahoma right now. And it's really the biggest issue, Chris, in every state. Everybody's chasing employees right now. And workforce at its core should be pretty simple, because all you got to do is you got to project what jobs you're going to need over the next 5 or 6 years from your employers. And then you figure out what's in your pipeline, what's coming out of OSU and Tulsa and the junior college in Norman and all of these, career tech, K-12 schools, and just make sure those two pieces of pipe are the same size. But it's hard to project, and it's hard to inspire young people or old people that are looking for something new to get into the same industries that are over here. I know Allison Garrett, our new chancellor, is really focused on that. Casey Schrum is very focused on that. Even Joe Harris, I've really enjoyed working with him down at OU as well. Everybody's focused on how do you make those two line up. But here's what our big issue is in Oklahoma, because we were actually retained graduates pretty well in Oklahoma. 89% of our graduates stay in Oklahoma after they graduate, and 83% are still here after 5 years. Our issue in Oklahoma is something called labor force participation rate. Everybody's heard of unemployment rate. Today we're 3% unemployment. That's 19th in this nation, but it's also full employment. I mean, if you're looking for a job, you can find one in Oklahoma right now. But we track something called labor force participation rate. This is the total percentage of folks over the age of 16 that are in the workforce, that are not incarcerated. So they're not like a Chris relative or something. They're people that are eligible to be in the workforce. We're at just hit 61% on labor force participation rate. We've been one of the fastest getting back to pre-COVID numbers on labor force, but that's still 2 percentage points below the national average. If we could get to the national average on labor force participation, that'd be about 40,000 people in the workforce extra. And we believe our delta right now is about 38,000. So that would solve a lot of our problems. Some of the reasons why is we have a very high percentage of folks in Oklahoma that are retired. So we have an older population than most states. We have a large percentage that are formerly incarcerated, large percentage that are ill and disabled. But probably the big one we could address really quickly is we have a very high percentage of folks who say that they are have responsibilities at home. So think of like a stay-at-home mom, a stay-at-home dad, somebody caring for an aging parent or grandparent. The two areas of our economy that have not come back strong yet are workers in childcare facilities and nursing homes. Those two are lagging significantly. If we could get more people into those workplaces, it reduces some of the backlog. Some of you probably work in that industry. I'd love to hear what you've got going on and any successes that you've had. We set aside $75 million in grants for childcare facilities and can't get rid of the money right now because it's not really even a money issue. It's how do you find the people to do it? And there's probably some things we can do on the state level to make it easier on childcare facilities to get permitted and that kind of thing. But workforce is going to be very important. The other thing we got to do is just attract more people. I said our population is going up. We'd love to attract more people here to Oklahoma, and we've been pretty successful at that so far. And then the last thing I'll mention, and then we'll open it up to some questions, is that in order to grow an economy, any economy, but particularly the state of Oklahoma, we have to make sure every community is aggressively trying to grow. Whenever I came in at Department of Commerce 4 years ago, first thing I did was change the mission statement, because our mission statement forever has been creating quality and quantity of jobs in the state, which is great. We want quality and quantity of jobs, but I've never believed that the Department of Commerce creates any jobs. We don't create any jobs. Governor Stitt doesn't create jobs. Your legislators don't create any jobs. Nobody down there at 23rd and Lincoln does. Our role in state government, and I would suggest the role of the mayor, the role of the local economic development folks in Stillwater, is to create an environment where businesses feel comfortable creating jobs. And that environment is more than just incentives. It's more than just having a good site or a infrastructure in place. It has to do with your permitting, has to do with the taxes, has to do with the workforce that you have, has to do with the relationships that are built. It's much, much more than that. And in order for that to happen in a town like Stillwater, and you have been very successful at this, you have to have leaders step up, Rotarians stepping up in order to help create that environment, support those that are creating that environment. And you're going to be asked why. I know Will probably gets, why would we invest tax dollars to support industry to come? Why do we have a Chamber of Commerce? Why do we have Christie over to Convention and Visitors Bureau? Why do we invest in these kind of things? Why do we even care about it? Just let it happen. Let the market make it work. Well, I'll answer that this way. I mentioned that my daughter is graduating next week. My son graduated 2 years ago. He's getting married in November. We will start and I think actually my daughter may be getting married soon too. He hasn't asked her yet, but he's going to give her that look. And I think it's coming. So we were going to start a GoFundMe that y'all can help out with. But so yeah, I know. We'll have some more happy $20 things. But so all of our discussions in our house right now is about wedding stuff. All of it is about wedding stuff. And I don't get asked for my opinion on anything, Steve. But most of the discussion is about venues and making sure that we have a big enough venue because, excuse me, of all of my kids' grandparents, all of their aunts and uncles, all of their first cousins live in Oklahoma. And on my wife's side, all of their aunts and uncles of first all live here in Oklahoma. So you can drive to every softball game, to every sheep show, to every speech contest, to every football game. Everybody shows up together. This area of America, and specifically in Oklahoma, we have provided opportunities for the Kislings and the Bergs to stay closer together. So if anybody asks you, why do we care about economic development? That's why, so that we can provide opportunities for the next generation to stay close, so that Steve and I don't have to fly off to Chicago and Atlanta and London someday to spoil grandkids. We need to at least provide that opportunity here. And if that's your motivation, it makes it really easy to do things like what I do every day. And with that, I hope I got a few minutes for questions. Did I go too long? Okay, good. Yeah, any questions from anybody?
Everything we read, see, and not in Stillwater experience, but certainly across the state, puts us at the lowest in the nation in public education, both in quality of, not in quality, but in the teacher salary and the quality of education. We look at rural schools, we look at things that I'm speaking for myself now, that our governor and whatever he is, superintendent of schools, has tried to put into place. And I can't imagine that does not affect the attraction of companies to Oklahoma, does it?
Yep. Great question. And like Chris said, I did turn down the PR job for Ryan Walters. Let me answer that this way, because it does come up some. But I will tell you how it comes up the most is on local. It's more of a local issue than it is a statewide issue. We don't have a lot of discussions about, oh, Mr. Kisling, I'm not even looking at Oklahoma because you're 48th in education. Normally, they're not doing that. Normally, they will come for a site visit in Stillwater, and they're going to walk the halls of Stillwater High in each of your elementary schools, and they're going to be curious whether you've passed bond issues to support those schools and everything that surrounds it. They're going to be wanting to meet the superintendent. They're going to want to be meeting some of the teachers that are there. Does the community rally around the schools? That kind of thing comes up in almost every one of our discussions that we have. And there are a lot of things we can do on the state level to improve education. Not really my circus nor my monkeys, but I will tell you that supporting education on the local level makes a huge difference for your community. It is probably the #1 quality of life issue that you could address locally. I don't know if that answers your question, but I said it with passion. So, yes, sir.
Larry, hold on. Mike, Larry.
So I've heard it said that we could use more emphasis on career tech for a lot of jobs that come in, manufacturing jobs, et cetera, where people with certifications from those are in short supply, whereas maybe people with degrees and whatever we're doing pretty well. Do you see that at all, that maybe more emphasis on career tech would help us not only at the local level, but across the state.
Well, I'll start out by saying we have the best career tech system in the nation, and there's a number of reasons why. And some of it's a blessing and a curse. The blessing side of career tech is that it is separate from our higher ed system, which is a little bit unique from the rest of the country. Normally, a career tech system is going to be kind of like tied in with our community colleges. We don't have that in Oklahoma. And the benefit to that is whenever you're needing to bring in a teacher to teach somebody electrical services or automotive or something like that, you can go in town and find the person that's the best in that in town and just hire them and bring them in. You don't have to go through a whole certification process, ABET certified and all that kind of thing. You can just bring that best person in and be pretty fleet of foot. The negative side of it, though, is that it's difficult for somebody to take a class in your career tech system and then use those same hours to go toward a degree, associate's degree, or some kind of undergrad or master's degree. To me, that's one of the big things that we need to look at in Oklahoma, and we're seeing that in some pockets. I'm not familiar here in Stillwater whether you've done some of those partnerships. I know I've seen it in Lawton lately. I know in Enid, where I live, Autry Tech and NOC and Northwestern have done some of that, specifically with the aerospace industry in Oklahoma City. We've seen it with Francis Tuttle and Metro Tech and Rose State College, where you can start in a degree program in career tech, and those hours will transfer on up. But the other part of your question is this whole idea of credentialing. And I will say in higher ed, and I'm sure there's a lot of you in here that work in higher ed, just walking across the stage with a diploma, it makes it a whole lot harder to get a job nowadays than it used to. And a lot of the schools are looking at micro credentialing and making it to where you have a specific skill that leads you toward a specific job following graduation. I think that's where we're heading in education, and we're already there on career tech. I would say that the partnerships on the higher ed side is what's going to make it work, though. But yes, that is the trend. You're exactly right. Yes, sir.
I'll start by just saying I think it's a great thing that you're the longest serving director of commerce. It's been a great partnership. We've enjoyed working with you. USA Rare Earth project, especially here in Stillwater,
Which I should have mentioned at the beginning. I am so glad you brought that up.
But
Thank you.
your partnership, the department's partnership on that was huge. I have a question about the state treasurer released a list this week of the financial institutions that we can no longer do business with in the state, or us as a city. I understand the point there. I understand that probably will potentially will generate some more business for other institutions. But I am concerned, like with any restraint of trade, that it raises prices. We in the city have already seen where not being able to do business with some of those folks is going to make it more expensive for us to go out and borrow money. So I'm wondering if the department has done any kind of analysis at this point on how you see that affecting commerce overall in the state, whether restricting the amount of financial institutions that are available for us to work with is going to make it more difficult for financing of some of these projects.
Yep. No, and great question. And it's about those financial institutions that discriminate in some way against oil and gas industry. I mean, that's basically where it comes from. And we have not dug into that. That's actually a really good point. It's probably something we could look a little deeper into. I do have a meeting with Treasurer Russ first of next week to discuss some of this. But on the flip side, and I know there probably will be some pricing issues there, but on the flip side, it goes to my first point also. In Oklahoma, we want to take care of our own, and we want you to come to Oklahoma and be part of this. But once you're here, we want to take care of you, and we want to have your back. And so that's what that legislation was all about. And I would imagine there's probably other states that go on the exact opposite side. And California is probably the best example of that, and they lose a congressional seat. So we're going to take care of our own first. But the mayor did mention USA Rare Earth Magnets here in Stillwater. If you're unfamiliar with that, you're the only ones, because everybody outside of Oklahoma is very aware of this project, because it's the first one of its kind, not just in Oklahoma, not just in the United States, the first one of its kind in the Western Hemisphere is right here in Stillwater, Oklahoma, with all of the electric vehicles. Whether you like electric vehicles or not, it's coming. Probably by 2035, it's coming. And we're working on the supply chain to make sure we have battery manufacturing here and the brackets and all of that. But the big part of the supply chain on battery manufacturing is the rare earth minerals, the lithium and the cobalt and the nickel, and which are mined all around the world. People say, well, it's all mined in places where people hate us. No, lithium is mined in Arkansas, which they do hate us, but they're close. They are close. But they're mined all around the world. The problem is 99.8% of the refining of rare earth minerals happens in China. And so all of this product has been mined for years and years, for decades, and sent to China, turned into magnets and batteries. This is the first time in the Western Hemisphere that you're going to have the refining and processing of rare earth minerals that are part of that battery supply chain. This is just the first toe in the water of what I think is going to happen in Stillwater in this area. So congratulations on making that happen. You look like you're wanting to pull me off the stage. Oh, okay. All right.
We got time for one more.
Good. Yes.
It's a lot of pressure. I don't know if I want that. I know that you were talking about the labor shortage is a big issue, and I was curious what part immigration plays in solving that solution or solving that problem, or compounding it. I don't know which.
Yes, and I can take that question two different ways. One is on the illegal immigration side. I'm of the opinion any activity that's got the word illegal in it probably shouldn't be happening. So that should be an issue that needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed quickly. But one of the reasons why illegal immigration is such a big issue is because our legal immigration process takes forever and it's arduous. And if we could figure out a way for folks who want to be here to be able to streamline through the process and get to all of your places of employment more quickly, that could work very, very well. But yeah, we are, I don't know the number off the top of my head. We are one of the top 10 states for net in-migration for folks who are coming in to the nation, not necessarily illegal, but just immigration into the United States and into Oklahoma. So we welcome everybody. Love to have them here. We need them because the job growth is so fast right now. But it is, yeah, it's an interesting one to tackle. Yes, Mr. Norris.
It's my program. I get to let him ask the last question. No, you touched on the 89% and the 83% after 5 years. We've always kind of been led to believe there's a huge brain drain that leaves us.
It was just 5 years
right
ago.
now. Does this
That's-
include our students that come from Texas and possibly stay here, or
Yeah, well, I'm taking this from memory now. I want to say the out-of-state student retention in year 3 is 64%. I think that's
Okay.
about what it is. I know I got it on my
are they
phone.
part of that 89?
Oh, yeah. No,
Okay.
they're part of that as well. Now, I will caveat it here just a little bit. That includes our entire higher ed system. And so when you throw in Northwestern and North
Well, it all
Oklahoma College and
counts.
some,
I
it's
mean-
exactly right. The numbers would be less for Oklahoma State University and OU for sure. But your local schools, the directional schools, that percentage is going to be even higher in that area. And I serve on the Dr. Horn, the College of Ag Advisory Council with Dr. Kuhn, who was on his way out here. And I've had some conversation with them about us identifying within different divisions at OSU what our retention rate is. We don't do a great job within divisions of saying, okay, all the College of Ag graduates are staying here, but the A&S graduates are leaving, or the engineering are leaving. And actually, I don't have the number at the top of my head, but the engineering graduates would be quite a bit lower than that 89 and 83%. So and that's one of our big needs right now. But again, like the question about education earlier, it's all local. We know we need aerospace engineers in Oklahoma. Boeing today could hire every one of the engineers, computer engineers and aerospace engineers, every single one of them that's going to graduate from OU and OSU. Boeing alone could hire them, and it would fill about a third of the spots that they have open right now in Oklahoma City. But we don't need engineers in Broken Bow, aerospace engineers. We don't need them in Leedy. We don't need them in Moreland, Woodward. Necessarily. There's different needs in different parts of the state, and it falls to local institutions, local partnerships in order to fulfill those needs. It has been an absolute honor to be with you today. Thanks for lunch and have a great week. Thank you.